And we realize how quickly we can go from having an abundant supply to none at all. Like we saw, 6 months back in March, where all of a sudden we were waiting 2 months to get silver in our hands. He said their auditing software flagged my coin business account. I forget, it was like 8 to 10 times over the last 6 months. I think the problem's bigger than we believe, and it's probably not just coin and precious metal dealers. It's probably a lot of small businesses that are cash-type businesses.
As you can probably tell by that intro, we once again have Josh as a guest on our channel today. If you guys don't know who Josh is, he is the owner of Minot Coin and Bullion, which is a local coin shop in Minot, North Dakota. Now today we talked about silver prices, silver premiums, and the fact that they are coming down. We talked about demand in his shop, and of course we talked about the biggest news lately in the coin space and the silver space, the banking situation with local coin shops. So we're going to get into all of that, and if you want to hear what Josh has to say, make sure you stick with us, but don't forget to subscribe and help us continue to grow. I definitely appreciate that. Make sure you don't miss out on your chance to win a full monster box of Silver Eagles by going to our sponsor sdbullion.com/silverseeker and get your entry today. Josh, how you been, my friend?
I've been staying quite busy. Thanks for the call today. I appreciate it.
Oh, I'm always happy to have you on the channel. Listen, there's a lot been going on in the last couple of weeks. I want to touch on quite a bit of it. I want to touch on the banking situation that's kind of made the waves around YouTube the last couple of weeks. But before we get to that, because everybody's been talking about that, why don't we just get an idea of what's been going on in the last few weeks in your shop with, demand, premium, spot prices? Kind of let me know how it's been going.
Sure. Well, demand has remained steady. It's not to the point of where it was back in March, where everybody had record months, where demand spiked once banks started failing. But demand remains steady, and we're in a good spot, I think, as far as supply, because supply is readily available, and because that's the case at the moment, premiums have remained relatively low. So, although spot price has been bouncing up and down, I actually took some notes before you called. Silver, at least when I looked earlier today, it's Wednesday. What is it, September 6th? Silver's down to about $23.30 an ounce, and you might have a ticker on your screen on this one. I'm not sure. But
I will put it on right now for everybody. 23.46.
Okay, so it's up a hair since I looked, but it's down about $1.25, $1.40 from the 30-day high, but it's also the same price it was 2 weeks ago. So it did have a little bit of a spike up. It's come back down, and pullbacks are just the nature of the game. So I'm not surprised to see that little pullback in silver. And quite honestly, I think that's good for the stacker.
Yeah.
So I think I expect to have a pretty busy week, and a busy month, quite honestly, because as I said, premiums do remain pretty low, and I can get into my costs specifically if that's something you want to discuss.
Yeah, absolutely. I would first say that last week I had thought about ordering some silver. I'm like, you know what? Every time I order silver, every time spot price goes down. So in my head, I just imagined that I did order it, and sure enough, it worked. I tricked the system.
Is that all it takes?
That's all it takes. But I was looking, I had actually talked to Mike from Mid-America Coins, another person I have on my channel, and he said that his premiums are getting really low. Now, the sheets that I get to see, for example, Upstate, APMEX Wholesale, I get to look at, but I don't get to see like some of the people he works with. But he said that he's getting it even lower than what I'm about to tell you. But I see Upstate has it at $1.15 an ounce for generic rounds. Now, what do you get it for?
Yeah, I have a wholesaler that I can buy from today and pay anywhere from 85 to 90 cents over for generic rounds.
And that's, I believe, about where he is.
Quite low.
Yeah, I was going to say, I believe that's about where he is as well. So it's great to see because, we had talked just a few months ago, right, about will silver rounds ever get back to that, sub $2 an ounce, like $1.75, $2 an ounce over spot. And we had said we don't think it's very likely, but now I'm starting to think it is likely. What do you think?
Well, it really depends. One thing that I've had to kind of adapt in the last 6 months, which I don't want to say I've changed my business model, but I've adapted it to the times, is my goal used to always be, I try to make $1 per ounce versus my wholesale cost. I've had to bump that up recently just because of the volatility in the metals market. As we saw just in the last 2 weeks, silver's down $1.40. sometimes you end up with silver that you sell, and then you don't always have to replace it because you're over leveraged in metal, in inventory. So, I don't know. It's really tough to tell. Back when you could buy silver for like $1 over spot, wholesale costs were 40 cents, 45 cents, and we worked off a lot lower spreads back then. And I don't know if everybody does that, but it seems like now we have to be a little more conscientious, I guess, on our markup, just because of the volatility. And we realize how quickly we can go from having an abundant supply to none at all, like we saw, 6 months back in March, where all of a sudden we were waiting 2 months to get silver in our hands. So that's how I approach it. So I have bumped my spread up a little bit, but I've also bumped up my buy price. So that's something to think about too. And oh, well, what are you selling silver for? Well, I might quote them a price, but hey, I'm also buying it back at this higher rate too. So it kind of has a way of evening out if you're on both ends of it.
Yeah, that's fair. And you make a valid point. Yeah, you might be able to get it for 85 cents or 90 cents an ounce over spot, but what if you placed that order last Wednesday or Thursday, right? You didn't pay 75 cents, you paid, or 85 cents or $1, you paid $2.50 an ounce technically, if you look at it that way. And
right.
and let me ask you this. I mean, I know enough about the market that generally that's not a major issue if you're just replacing your supply. But like you said, when you have an overabundance and it's not selling as quickly, then it does become an issue. Is that right?
It does, yeah. And I think every dealer's ran into that situation where they get heavy on supply and short on cash. I'm not in that space specifically right now because demand, as I said, has been pretty steady with people buying, but I've also had a lot of people selling. And I think the last time we spoke, I mentioned there's some days I buy more across the counter than I sell. There's still days that happens. There truly are people, whether it be scrap jewelry or just straight bullion or collectible coins. I'm seeing large amounts come in the store. Fortunately, I do have a pretty solid demand of people buying, so I can move that product rather than accumulate and become cash deficient in the business. But, the next price spike up, we might see that where more and more people are coming in to sell to take profits. And then we have the situation where, well, wow, all of a sudden all the dealers run out of money. Who's going to buy it?
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. And, we had talked about that too. And I'm not going to try and ask you what you think the trigger point is either way, whether it's, we see demand skyrocket again because no one really knows, or if it's on the other side, we see a bunch of people wanting to sell all of a sudden again. But I don't know, based on what you've told me and what I've heard from a few other dealers that I talk to regularly, it seems like the market's like evened out. Like you don't have an overabundance of sellers anymore, but you also don't have an overabundance of buyers. So it sounds like it's kind of mellowed out right now. Where that next swing point is, though, who knows, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And, the easiest way for me to, I guess, realize that without having to think too hard about it is the amount of product I have to order off the wholesale channels. I haven't had to order as much lately because I've had stuff coming in, across the counter from customers that I can resell. So you're absolutely right, where it has, reached a point where it is kind of more even, where myself and probably some other dealers as well that have brick and mortar shops are less dependent on the wholesale channels to fulfill their inventory needs.
I'm sure the wholesalers love that.
Well, they don't, but that could be another reason why premiums are dropping too.
True, and there was a lot of sarcasm in that. I'm sure they love that. I'm sure you knew that.
I know, I caught that. Yeah, I picked up on it.
All right. Well, hey, I want to get into the other subject really quick. This is, I know you had, been on vacation for the last few days, but I think you know about this. There's been a lot of waves going around the internet about coin shops having their accounts closed randomly by banks. Now, we had Coin Huskers. We had the guy I spoke about last week out of Ohio. And now we have, I heard about Sherry from T the Silver Stacker, which I didn't even know about until you had actually brought that up to me. So I don't know why I didn't see that video, but I'll go take a look at it. But let me ask you this. Have you had yourself any issues with the banks, anything like that at all, being a coin shop?
Well, issues, not really, but I did get an interesting phone call. The vice president of the bank, who I know on a personal level and a business level. Granted, I will tell you, I have my business my coin business account in the local bank. You could argue they're actually regional because they do have some other branches in North Dakota and even some in Minnesota now because they've expanded. But I personally have had an account with that bank since 1980. My dad, who is my business partner, has had an account at that bank since the 1970s. And our other businesses, we have accounts there as well. So we're no strangers to the bank. They know who we are. They know what we do. And we've been in this coin business, Minot Coin and Bullion, since 2014. Well, anyway, I get a call from the vice president. He said it's basically a courtesy call, but he said their auditing software, whatever that means, flagged my coin business account. I forget, it was like 8 to 10 times over the last 6 months for certain cash deposits that I had made. There were some deposits, they were, like I said, 8 to 10, between $9,500 and $9,900. They flagged those, and they viewed that as suspicious, as I was intentionally trying to be under that $10,000 reportable transaction number, so my account got flagged. I said, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, well, it looks suspicious that you're intentionally trying to stay under that 10,000. I said, well, I am. I mean, I grab a pile of cash, I deposit it. If I get too much in the store, I just keep grabbing, stacks of cash and I deposit it. I said, what's suspicious about that? Well, you'd be better off depositing 12 grand because then it's reportable and it doesn't look suspicious. I said, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Right.
I mean, I try to keep a certain amount of cash in the store, and once I get over a certain amount, I'm grabbing 9 grand or 9,200 or whatever it is. So I said, what should I do moving forward? And like I said, he told me I should just start depositing over 10 grand in cash, which triggers the reporting for the bank and the IRS. And so I've looked at it as a different approach. And I jokingly said to him, but half seriously, I said, so does the bank not even want my cash anymore? He said, no, we want your cash. It's just that the fraud department doesn't want you making deposits that are close to 10 grand. I said, that makes absolutely zero sense to me. So it was at that moment a light bulb went off in my head. I need to probably get another bank or an additional bank.
Well,
if that's how it's going to be.
So let me ask you this, and that's just funny to me you say that. And I get it, like on a certain level where if you're, like, let's say you have 18,000 to deposit and you're like, well, I'm going to do 9 today. And then next week I'll do another 9. That way it doesn't report to the IRS. So I guess I kind of get that. But what is the point of even having the $10,000 threshold if when you make deposits under $10,000, they look suspicious? Like, you know what I mean? What is even the reason? You get what I'm saying, though?
That's my point exactly. Well, because like he had told me, he said it's the software that picked up on it.
Right.
And you had all these deposits that were flagged because they were between 95 and 9,900. I don't know. Some days, I don't know. It's stupid. It's really stupid. It was frustrating. We had a nice long talk about it. Long story short, we're looking at, and we haven't done it yet, but we're looking at opening another account at a different bank, which I probably should have done anyway. But as I said in the early part of this conversation, I've been with this bank for 43 years. I have all my personal accounts there, my business accounts, my father and mother as well. So, I mean, we're no strangers to the bank. We're very good customers, and we've been there for a very long time. But to get that phone call, and he was frustrated too because it was his job to make that call to me.
Right.
And he said, look, I understand I know who you are. You're a legitimate business. I don't think you're money laundering or anything. But when you do this, it triggers the software. And it flags your account, and I'm going to have to keep contacting you, and then we could start to have some problems. So I don't know. It makes absolutely no sense.
Right. So let me ask you another question just on that subject. Do you think there is actually a problem, just going around? I mean, I know you were actually friends with Coin Huskers and talk to him all the time, but, what the other banks or the other coin shops are hearing about. And I thought to myself about this, and I kind of mentioned it in one of my videos. Imagine how many of all the coin shops in the U.S., how many do you think really mess with YouTube or any kind of social media? 10% or less? So if we're hearing about...
for sure.
So if we're hearing about 3 of them that are, on YouTube, how many are out there that aren't? That, just you don't even hear about it, or you don't know, or maybe they don't even want to say anything. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Maybe I'm just full of it. Maybe I'm just looking too deep into it. Maybe this is normal. I'd love to know what you think.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. The problem is definitely bigger than we realize because it's, I didn't have an account closed, but I had a situation where I got harassed for making cash deposits to the bank. I mean, how many others are dealing with that? That's not in the YouTube space. So, yeah, you're absolutely right. I think the problem's bigger than we believe, and it's probably not just coin and precious metal dealers. It's probably a lot of small businesses that are cash type businesses. And it's the war against small business owners. Really, it's overregulation from government, and it's extremely frustrating. And that has forced people in this type of industry just to close up their doors because they don't want to deal with all the bureaucratic BS and the red tape that it takes to run a business now. And certain states are better than others. I'm fortunate to be in North Dakota, where we're typically a very conservative state, and they allow us businesses to have more freedoms than other businesses in our industry. I mean, we don't have to hold product for 30 days before we can resell it, and we don't have to fingerprint people who sell to us. I mean, there's a lot of things that other states have to do that are in this type of business that we don't, and I'm thankful. But the banking side of it is a little terrifying. Without the bank, how do we operate?
That's a really good question. How do you operate? And I mean, a lot of people will argue that you should be your own bank, but it can't be safe to hold. I'm not going to even guess how much capital you have, but it can't be safe to hold, let's say, $100,000 or $200,000 in a safe in your shop. I mean, that just can't be a safe thing to do. Banks are set up for it. Coin shops are certainly not, at least for the most part.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know what you would do in that situation. I mean, I've talked before, I'm not a huge fan of banks and the banking system, but I also recognize its importance. It's just, I think, and maybe you can speak to this, I think government oversight, like you said, and regulations, especially, these last few years have been really hammering down on them, and it's starting to filter down into your small businesses, especially coin shops and other businesses that handle a lot of cash. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And where does it end, quite honestly? They're going after the businesses that deal in large amounts of cash like myself. Are they going to start going after, people who set up at flea markets? That's their only source of income. I mean, are they going to start going after those people? Really, it's just like it's a power grab. It's a way for the government or Big Brother to watch over you and know what you're doing at every moment of the day and know every transaction that you make so they can get their tax dollars.
Yeah, and that's
how I look at it.
And I've already spoke about this on my channel, but I mean, that whole $600 reporting threshold to get a 1099, with cash at PayPal, so on and so forth. I mean, that's at that point you're just digging into grandma's pocket, sitting on a rocker making blankets and quilts to get a little bit of extra spending money. You know what I mean? I mean, that's how low how disgusting can you get? I don't know, but I
think it can get worse if we allow it.
Yeah. You're right. If we allow it, but I mean, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get you're right. If we allow it, as the voters, but I feel that sometimes there's just not enough people out there that are educated or knowledgeable about things like this. And they just vote with the crowd. You know what I mean? It's unfortunate, but
yep, it is.
I don't know. Well, Josh, I mean, that kind of covers everything I wanted to talk to you about today. As depressing as some of it got, and I'm sorry about that situation with your bank. I am always glad to hear the insight from you, especially as to what's going on in the shop, in the market, silver and gold. So I do appreciate that. Is there anything you wanted to share with everyone before we get off of here?
No, not really. Just I appreciate your calls and allowing me to speak on your big platform. I usually do get some new subscribers to my own channel once you call me, and I certainly do appreciate that because I have a small channel too, and I try to put out content as time permits, but things get so hectic I don't always get out as much as I'd like. But I always appreciate our chats and your friendship, and keep doing what you're doing. You're doing a great thing on YouTube, and you've blazed the trails for the little guys like me.
Well, guys, listen, My Coin and Bullion YouTube channel is fantastic. I'm going to put a link down below. Make sure you go check it out and subscribe and give them some more of those subs you just talked about. Josh, I appreciate you. I really do. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thanks again.
As always, it was a pleasure to have Josh on the channel, and I'm going to put a link for his YouTube channel down below if you guys want to go check that out. And additionally, the next thing you should do is check out this video, especially if you want to know more about the banking situation that I touched on in this one. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe. We will see you next time.